in soon. Y muy bien, estamos grabando para los que no pueden estar aquí con nosotros. I'm recording for those who cannot be with us today during class live, so they can watch later on. Entonces, muy buenos días, muy buenos días. Hoy vamos a practicar con muchísimas cosas. Vamos voy a empezar con preguntas de las novelitas. So if you need to grab this, if you had notes, if you had things earmarked, highlighted, lo que sea, whatever it might be. I'm going to open it up for questions first, and so that I don't shortchange us on that. ¿Y cuántos capítulos? Since we've got this week and next, are we going to finish these? Pretty much. See, we're going to have time to finish these. Okay, bien. No importa cuál, doesn't matter which one. Whichever one you have questions on, I'd like to open the floor for that first at the start of class. And make sure you open up your chat box, because whatever we have, I will type into the chat box so everybody can see the kind of questions that you might have. Anything on phrases, vocabulary, word order. Sí, Nora.
I had a question just about sentence structure in a couple of the sentences. So the first sentence I understood, it's Ana tiene problemas con Don. So Ana has problems with Don. And then the next sentence is tiene un libro importante. So I guess you just have to make the assumption that it's Ana that has an important book. You don't.
Sí. So your question really comes in from, you've got a verb, but you've got no subject.
Exactly.
To tell you who's doing the action of that verb. Sí, probable, very, very probable that what they're doing is they're assuming that you're taking that tiene un libro, we're talking about Ana. And this will happen a lot, although it does cause a little confusion because you have two single people, right? You've got Don, es el hermano, no, right? The brother, y Ana. But yeah, they're talking about Ana with that. Eso es. Sort of like the whole antecedent thing with English, you look at whoever they're talking about last, and you can kind of assume that that action is probably just a continuation of that character. Es buena pregunta. Okay, and you may need to take yourselves off of mute if you need to ask something else. I notice a lot of people are still on mute from coming into session. ¿Hay más preguntas o no?
Yeah, a couple questions here.
Okay, vale, magnífico, dime.
It's from the El Escape Cubano,
Okay.
capítulo 10, página 31.
31, bien, el barco.
Yeah, so they have, word here like me quieren atrapar. So can I say it like, is it the same meaning like ellos quieren atraparme?
Sí, eso es. Okay, voy a escribirlo. I'm going to write it down here. There are two ways you might have seen this phrase, but they chose to do it this way. Me quieren atrapar. Okay, me quieren atrapar, and she was talking about la Guardia Costal, or he was talking about Guardia Costal, Coast Guard, or people on the shore, right? Me quieren atrapar. Me is only talking about this many people, and it obviously does not match up with quieren, a plural verb. Okay, so that means the me is telling who is receiving the action of that verb atrapar. Okay, they want to trap or they want to catch me. So me, the person represented by me, is not doing the action of want to catch. They want to catch me. We know this because quieren is saying that they want to do this. Me quieren atrapar. You could, because it's a two-verb phrase, and for those of you who are newer, that means we've got two verbs right next to each other. First one's conjugated, second one is not. Quieren atraparme means the exact same thing as me quieren atrapar. You see them both in the chat box. Me quieren atrapar is the same thing as quieren atraparme. So when I've got two verbs together, there are two places that word me, indicating who receives the action of being caught, can go. It can either be tagged on to the end of the infinitive, or it comes up in front of the verb, which is the more usual, the more traditional place for an object pronoun to be. So if it comes in front of it, a verb, it must be in front of a conjugated verb. If I've got a verb plus infinitive, it can be attached to the end of the infinitive. Caboose on the train.
Okay.
They're
But
both
do
correct.
you need to use the subject when it's like that, or you can say just quieren atraparme or ellos quieren atraparme? You have to use the subject, or you can omit the subject.
And to give some context to those who don't have it, the two little sentences in front of this me quieren atrapar, because the context is everything, is es cierto, tengo que escaparme de los americanos. I have to escape the Americans. Me quieren atrapar. They want to catch me. And because we got quieren, we know it's a they, and we were talking about Americanos, so we know that they are the ones who want to catch this person. And the they will very typically be skipped.
Oh, so that way.
Often,
the second question that I'm asking is like the one that I'm asking is like the ellos, like do we need to use like ellos quieren atraparme or just quieren atraparme?
Just quieren atraparme.
Okay.
Very, very often the subject pronoun, whether it is ellos or ellas or él or ella, and certainly if it's yo, tú, or nosotros, certainly with those three. But even with third person, they just skip it. If we know from the context, we were talking about Americanos, people pursuing people landing on a beach, then they want to trap me. We know that you're talking about the Americanos being the ones who want to do that. They'll skip the word they.
Okay.
That is a very typical thing to do. Dropping the subject pronouns, which a lot of other languages can't do, but Spanish frequently does do.
Okay.
Bien. Okay.
There's another question, actually. I have another one.
See?
The next page.
Okay.
I'm just curious about this. The last sentence at the very bottom of that page, it says, no me puedo mover.
No me puedo mover.
So yeah, I mean, like, and then I just wanted to know, like, what can I say if I cannot walk or I cannot run? So no me puedo caminar is I cannot walk. But
okay, it's a little different. It's a little different. And this is something we'll talk about over summer because it's a long topic. No me puedo mover. Oh, and I've got two verbs, right? Puedo and mover. So they could have phrased it as no. And I put that wrong. I'm sorry. My brain scrambled this morning. No me puedo mover. Okay, so ignore that last thing I typed in chat box. Here's the right one. No me puedo mover. No me puedo mover can also be typed as no
Puedo moverme.
Puedo moverme. Both of same thing. Two verbs talking about one activity. The first one gets conjugated, the second one does not. They could have phrased it either way. No me puedo mover, no puedo moverme. we would not do that with a verb like caminar. Okay, this is because mover means to move, but moverse means something a little different. So I could say, muevo los libros. Aquí. I'm moving the books over here. I'm moving things. But if I move a part of my body, it's moverme. I move myself. I move something that's a part of me. And that is what that little me is about. I cannot move. No me puedo mover. I cannot move a part of my body. And moverme means moving body part. Certain verbs have, and you'll notice, me matches up with the verb. Oh, it's a yo verb with a me pronoun. What is that? We don't need yo. Why would I need the me? I need the me because it means I'm doing something to myself.
But isn't it caminar is also self, like you walk
No.
or you run? No?
No, caminar is just caminar, but mover could be I move a thing versus I move this. Or I move this. Certain verbs are considered what they call reflexive, meaning that whoever does the action also receives that action. They're one and the same. I do the action, I also receive the action. Caminar does not fall into that, what they call reflexive category. We'll talk about this during the summer session.
Okay.
But, oh, you do know one reflexive verb already. Me llamo. Me llamo is a reflexive verb. It means I call myself. Now, we would never translate it that way in English because it would sound funny in English. I call myself, well, it would sound stilted. I call myself.
How about me gusta?
Me gusta is different.
Okay, don't worry about it.
No, I won't worry about it. No, son buenas preguntas. These are very, very good questions. We're going to call up a whiteboard though, because we've got many questions. And it has occurred to me that it may be easier for me to show this to you by bringing up a whiteboard. Okay. But this will be brief. Vamos, okay, aquí. Here we go. So let me, okay, let's take the camino, right? We can say or admit that yo, most people, if you just say camino en el parque, I walk in the park. And the person doing the action is yo. We're not going to bother with the yo most of the time. We're just going to, we're just going to say it as camino en el parque. And people aren't going to bother with the yo unless for some reason they want to be, emphatic, but probably not a likely thing, not a common thing. Okay. Camino tells who's doing the action without me having to have a pronoun of any kind. I don't need a pronoun. Most people will not use the pronoun. It's considered unnecessary because camino tells you everything you need to know. Tells you who's doing the action. But a verb like me muevo means I move, and there's an implication, although it's not stated, I move some kind of body part. And it's attached to me. Okay. In this case, we don't say the yo, but this little pronoun of me does, in essence, match up with, it indicates the person yo. The me indicates the person yo, and it indicates who's receiving the action of moving, okay? But if I move something that's a part of my body, it's considered what they call reflexive. And that means that even though I won't say the yo, I could say yo me muevo, It's a yo verb, but it's going to use me as the pronoun to indicate that I received that action. And the same thing happens when you say me llamo. Me llamo, the verb matches up with a yo type pronoun. It's not yo, but it's in that family of, hey, it's talking about myself, but it's saying I call myself. All right. And similarly, so the verb, which tells who does the action, matches up with who receives the action. I do the action. I also receive the action. Okay. Similarly, you ask, ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas? How do you call yourself? We don't use the tú. ¿Cómo te llamas? Llamas is a tú verb. You're doing the calling. You call yourself. It's a te, it's not tú, but it matches up with that tú idea. It's a te pronoun and matches up with the tú verb. Okay, bien. I'm going to give you one other verb that typically does this because me muevo is maybe a little, well, you just have to know it is reflexive. I move a body part as opposed to I pick something up and I move it from one spot to a different spot. Let's pick something else like, me levanto. Me levanto, I get up. I levanto could mean this, I move, I lift up something. Levanto el libro, I lift up the book so everybody can see it. But me levanto means I get my whole body up out of a seated position. I get my whole body up out of bed, perhaps. I get myself up. Okay. That is another example of what they call a reflexive verb. We're going to take a look at those in summer. Reflexive verbs mean the person who does the action. Oh, we conjugate the verb for who does the action. The little pronoun is going to match up with that person. Okay, I'm not going to give you all the reflexive pronouns yet. Me is an obvious one and de is an obvious one because you've had it, but there will be a nos and there will be a se. Okay, those are what we call reflexive. The person who does the action also receives that action. But when I've got me gusta, it's a different thing. And we'll take a real good look at gusta. Well, we might get time next lesson for that. We probably should. Me gusta. Okay. Me gusta. Actually, here's a little secret. Gustar does not mean like.
Oh,
It doesn't. It does not translate to the word like. ¿Cómo se dice? ¿Cómo se dice to like? There is no verb in Spanish that means to like. It does not exist. It doesn't exist. What to do? Doesn't everybody say they like something? Well, yeah, but Spanish expresses this idea of liking with a totally different verb. And gustar really means to be pleasing
Oh,
to
please.
someone. To be pleasing to someone is what gustar really means, to give pleasure. Well, again, just like me llamo, I call myself, we don't say I call myself. Likewise, we don't say that is really very pleasing to me. People would think you were weird because we just don't say that. We don't. Okay. But they use a whole different verb and a whole different word structure, word order to express that same idea. So while like does not exist as a verb in Spanish, to be pleasing does. And so me gusta really means something, and it is a one thing, or it might be an activity, is pleasing to me. And the me there means to me. So, okay, what I'm telling you is me might mean I am directly receiving an action. May might mean I am reflexively receiving an action. Might mean I am indirectly receiving an action, which is the case with me gusta. So me translates as, it can mean me, like, oh, they see me in the park every day. Me ven en el parque todos los días. Me ven en el parque. They see me in the park. It can mean me. It can mean to me. It can mean to myself or myself in a reflexive sort of way. Like I see myself in a mirror, or I brush my own teeth, or I get my body up out of a chair. So me is at what they call an object pronoun. Me does not tell who's doing something. Me tells who receives the benefit of that action. Okay. So
we can just say no puedo caminar.
no puedo
can-
caminar. Caminar
Okay.
does not mean, okay, walk. Does that have an object? No. Does anybody receive walk?
Okay.
No. But when I call, do I call you? Do I call him? Do I call her? Do I call them? Yes, I call somebody.
Okay.
So somebody receives that action. Caminar, walk. Nobody receives that action. Bien?
Yeah.
I'm drinking coffee. What am I drinking? Something, yeah, I'm drinking it. It could be receiving that action directly. That kind of like opens a big can of worms, but we will talk about me gusta next week. It is time. It is time to do that. Okay.
All right.
Me gusta. Me gusta. You'll notice though, me and gusta, the me does not match up in the form. That
Yeah.
gusta is not in a yo form. A thing is pleasing to me. It gives me pleasure, right? But I get myself up. I do that to myself, okay? Or I call myself, meaning I name myself. I call myself by this name.
Mm.
So me will have many functions in a sentence. Es buena pregunta. Okay, a ver. Hay más. Is there any more? And we are going to put gusta on because you know what? Yes, we can do that next week. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to introduce. It takes a while to roll with it, but we'll just do just gusta next week. Okay. Hay más preguntas? No. Okay. And with reflexive verbs, don't get too hung up on it. Do I do the action to myself? It'll become kind of obvious. You'll see that a me gets a yo verb. Oh, it's what they call reflexive. I must be doing this to myself. It's used for things like brushing your teeth. It's used for things like brushing your and combing your hair. It's used for washing your own hands versus washing the car or washing the windows or washing clothing. Okay, so the me muevo means I am moving something that's attached to me. Yeah. Okay. Buena pregunta. Good question. ¿Hay más o no? No. And undoubtedly you've seen some of Gustar used anyway in your books. So next week we are going to, here's an official decision. We will work on Gustar. We might even get a chance to introduce it a little bit today. Okay. I am going to play something for you because even though this is made by a kid, this was made by a talented kid. This is a very cute story on stem changes. It has very few errors. Normally, I don't ever use student examples, let alone teenage examples. If you go to the internet and you type it, You type in, there are kids we had to do projects for their Spanish class and they posted their videos using Spanish to YouTube. Some of them really are not very good. So I usually stay away from that stuff like the plague. But, I looked at this and I said, well, I've only wasted 3 minutes of my time if this is a bust. Well, surprisingly, it was not a bust. I want you to notice how many stem changing verbs, O to UE, E to IE, and we'll see maybe even 1 or 2 E to Is you might see in these examples. This is amazingly well done with very few errors. A ver. Okay, and it's good to get a feel for this because she uses a story to build all these verbs in.
Almorzamos en McDonald's.
We're having lunch at McDonald's.
Roberto trabaja en McDonald's. Le gusta trabajar en McDonald's porque puede comer muchas papas fritas.
Where's a stem changing verb? Yeah. This is a cute and understandable story. Oh, and you've got a le gusta. Le gusta.
I saw that.
Working at McDonald's is pleasing to him. He must be the only person in history who's ever said, I love working at McDonald's. Okay. Where's our stem changing verb in this?
Puede.
Puede. Puede comer. He can eat. He likes, because he's a fan of fries. Puede comer muchas papas fritas. He can eat lots of fries.
Puede beber mucho Mountain Dew. Puede beber mucha cola, pero prefiere el Mountain Dew. Prefiere el Mountain Dew y las papas fritas.
She introduced not just puede, but also one more stage.
Prefiere.
Prefiere. Prefiere. And by the way, prefiere is one of those verbs they suggest you substitute rather than saying no me gusta, I don't like. Because no me gusta is kind of strong. It's a big stop sign, no me gusta. Me gusta, I like, but no me gusta, I don't like. Kind of comes off like this.
It's like, I hate it.
No, it's not as strong as I hate it. There are ways to say I hate it. Lo detesto, lo odio. But no me gusta comes off as being kind of in your face. So many people, rather than saying, gee, I don't like, will say, oh, I prefer this instead, which is kind of like, a backdoor way of saying, well, but this is better, without saying, I don't like. Just kind of, culturally is a little in your face, okay? I mean, unless something is very obvious, like noisy traffic. Will that offend anybody if you say, no me gusta el tráfico? No, it won't offend anybody, right? If somebody is a dog walker and they're walking 10 dogs down the street and they're all making noise, no me gusta el ruido, you've offended nobody by saying you don't like something. But if somebody serves you something there and you say, well, I don't like it, it kind of comes off as, So prefiere is always the alternative. Oh, I prefer this, which is way nicer than saying don't like something.
Las papas fritas. No entiende porque hay muchas personas que no les gusta McDonald's. En su opinión, es el trabajo perfecto.
Bien. And we introduced another stem changing verb here. ¿Cuál es? Entiende. No entiende. And there's no ella, there's no él. It's in an él-ella form, but we're talking about that same person, so we don't even bother with an él. No entiende, doesn't understand why people don't like McDonald's. His point of view is just the best thing in the world.
Roberto trabaja a la ventanilla del autoservicio. Las personas que almuerzan en McDonald's vienen a la ventanilla y Roberto repite la orden. Todo el día él repite las órdenes.
Bien.
Mm.
And as a good little instructor, she tells her story and repeats a lot of these structures to make sure they're understood. Almuerzan en las personas que almuerzan en McDonald's, the people who eat at McDonald's, that little que there is, it's not quien, but we would say the people that eat or the people who eat. You know, you just say that as que in Spanish, las personas que almuerzan. And almuerzan is talking about them eating, so it has to be almuerzan. And vienen a la ventanilla and come up to the service window. Yeah, what are that, like takeout window, yeah? Ventanilla says it's a little window. It's not a window for, you know, leisurely looking outside. It's a business window. Ventanilla, it's a little window. Ventanilla. Y Roberto repite la orden. He repeats the order. Todo el día él repite las órdenes.
A veces hay personas que vienen a la ventanilla y piden una ensalada. Roberto no entiende por qué las personas piden las ensaladas de McDonald's.
Yo tampoco,
Él
mire.
siempre repite la orden con confusión. Los
Bien, sí, yeah, well, yeah, I don't know why you would want a salad at McDonald's either. Okay, okay, ¿cuáles son los verbos de cambio radical? Which ones are stem changers in here?
Vienen,
Vienen,
piden,
piden,
entienden,
entiende, she repeats, piden again, and
repite.
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 So look how she very cleverly maneuvered all of those into a little story.
What's
A veces.
siempre?
Siempre is always.
Always.
Oh,
We're gonna
okay.
see we're gonna see a little video about frequency verbs, or not frequency verbs, frequency words, which are not verbs, but words. A veces
Okay.
means sometimes, literally at times. But we would probably say sometimes. Sometimes there are people who come to the little window, the service window, the takeout window, we would call it, and they order a salad. Roberto does not understand why people order salads from McDonald's. He always repeats the order with confusion or in a confused way, okay? And she used the piden, okay? Bien.
confusión. Los amigos almuerzan en McDonald's también. Los amigos Esteban y Joaquín almuerzan en McDonald's los lunes, los miércoles y los viernes.
Bien, and we have some time cues here, but they only use almuerzan here, almuerzan. These guys who are buds of his, they eat there too. And they eat there, and we tell when. Los lunes, los miércoles, los viernes, on Mondays, all of them. They're talking about a regular schedule. Yeah, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, los viernes.
Los martes y los jueves, ellos almuerzan a Pizza Hut. Roberto no entiende por qué ellos almuerzan a Pizza Hut cuando pueden almorzar en McDonald's.
Why would you go to Pizza Hut when you couldn't go to McDonald's? Yes, sí, okay. Almuerzan, no entiende, ellos almuerzan, pueden almorzar. Bien, okay. So you see how she incorporated all these.
Una
Captain.
pizza cuesta $15 y las papas fritas solamente cuestan $1. No cuesta mucho dinero almorzar en McDonald's. Es fantástico.
Es económico. Clearly, economics are.
What
big
is that on the
drivers.
last sentence? IS. So
S.
IES.
Oh no, it's not an I. It's an upside down.
That's the
It's
exclamation
an upside
mark.
down exclamation mark. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. What verb? And you saw this a long time ago when we used numbers.
Cuesta.
Cuesta is a stem changer. Cuesta. A pizza costs $15, and
Wow.
fries only cost
$1.
$1. It doesn't cost much money to eat lunch at McDonald's. It's great. Okay, so cuestan, plural, papas fritas, fries cost, because papas fritas, well, you're obviously not buying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't count them up, but there's more than one of them. So it's cuestan. Papas fritas cuestan. Fries, they cost, but una pizza cuesta, singular. Bien? You will not hear costar conjugated for yo or nosotros because hello, people don't cost money. All right, so it'll always be cuesta, this thing costs, or cuestan, these things cost. Bien.
Después de comer las papas fritas y beber Mountain Dew por mucho tiempo, Roberto empieza a engordar.
And engordar, there's a little word buried in the middle of engordar that gives you a clue to what that verb means. Engordar es un verbo, it's a verb, but there's a little word buried in the middle.
Gordo.
Gorge.
Gordo.
Gorge.
And that gordo, you know, that means,
Fat.
yeah. So engordar means to do, to get,
Expands.
yeah,
Chubby.
Expands.
to expand, yes, to get fat. Empieza a engordar. Empieza, here's a stem changer. Empieza a, he's starting to. He's not fat yet. He's starting to get, yeah. But he's beginning to
get-
plump up. Yeah. Empieza a engordar. Empieza a, it just needs that little word a, like voy a llamarte. I'm going to call you. Empieza needs that little word a, it just does. Empieza a engordar. After eating fries and drinking Mountain Dew for a long time, mucho tiempo, Roberto is starting to get fat.
Empieza a engordar mucho. Él necesita pantalones nuevos.
Needs new pants.
Entonces,
Pobre Roberto.
empieza a almorzar en Subway. Pide un bocadillo que cuesta $5.
Okay, so, bien, entonces, then he starts to eat lunch at Subway. So she used
Empieza
this.
a comer en
How
Subway
do I get rid of that?
todos los días. Ahora, Roberto no trabaja en McDonald's. Ahora empieza un trabajo en Subway. El
Okay,
fin.
el fin. This is probably the only 16-year-old video I will ever show you, or 15-year-old video, pero vale la pena. It shows you how many little verbs she wove into her story,
Yeah.
which is very ingenious, which normally is something you only see an instructor do, but not a student. Okay, a ver. We are going to talk a little bit and practice with some of these E to I stem changers. So I'm going to show you a little screen. I did send you a video to watch on stem changers, E to I. Did I not?
Yes.
I sent you a little video, right?
Sí.
Sí, bien. Okay, so it's going to follow the same kind of thing. It's just that the pattern is different. So you'll notice with all these stem changers, it's a vowel, an internal vowel, a vowel in the stem, as you will. The stem means the main big part of the verb. It's an internal vowel, an O or an E, that changes into something else. It splits off to become a true vowel combo, or in the case of E to I, it just changes from E to I, okay? And stem changing verbs can be AR verbs, they can be ER verbs, they can be IR verbs. They can come in any of those varieties, but okay? But the stem change always happens in this boot or shoe form, meaning everything inside of the boot or the shoe gets that vowel change. And this is the last type. And the reason we do this last is because it's the smallest category of verbs that has a stem change. Now, you may ask, as I did when I was 14, If a verb is a stem changer, and I've memorized that it's a stem changer, how do I know if it's an E to IE or if it's an E to I? Those O ones, O to UE, you know it's going to do that. But E, wait a minute, it could be IE, it could be E to I. Well, E to I is a very small category. You just have to know which verbs fall into that category, but it's not super abundant. E to IE stem changes, abundant. Many, many verbs will follow this shoe or boot pattern of having a stem change. And you'll know it because you'll hear somebody use a verb and it gets an IE or a UE. So you'll know that'll happen. But these E to I's, you just have to know which ones they are. Pedir is one of the big obvious ones. Pedir, to ask for, and the for is built into the verb. Or to order, like if you're in a restaurant or in a store, okay? And again, just like O to UE or E to IE changes, it happens within this boot or shoe. And that means that nosotros and vosotros are outside the shoe. They go back to whatever the original vowel is. So we get pido, pides, pide, piden, but then outside of the shoe, pedimos. And pedimos keeps the e there. It keeps that E from pedir. It keeps E. I've got to go the opposite direction to make these bigger. Okay, so that is what it does. Now, so the interesting thing is it's a small category, so you'll start to get familiar with which kind of verbs do this. Servir. Oh, you've got the opposites on the restaurant continuum. Pedir, to ask for, has an E to IE, or excuse me, an E to I change. And servir, serving, the opposite of pedir, serving something, okay, has an E to I change. So servir becomes sirvo, sirves, sirve, sirven. And you'll notice the conjugations are no son normales. They're normal, what you'd expect them to be. So the conjugations are normal. It's that little vowel in the middle that is abnormal. Okay, but servimos, servis, servimos, no stem change. And seguir, muy importante. This verb seguir, you will hear a lot. Because while you may say to yourself, well, I may not use the verb follow or continue a lot, when people give you directions and they say, keep going 4 blocks, they will use this verb. Okay, so seguir es importante. Seguir is very odd in a couple of ways. It's odd in that it's also it's got some spelling changes. So that little U, S-E-G-U-I-R, seguir, that U is a silent U. It's one of the very rare silent letters in Spanish. And its job, that little U, which we don't pronounce, its sole job is to stand there to make sure that you pronounce the G like a G instead of pronouncing the G like a H. So when I switch over to the yo form, which has an O, of course, because it's a yo form, I no longer need that letter U because G-O gets a go form. So that's why the U from seguir disappears. It has a job. Its job is to stand there and make the G a hard sound, but G-O already will get the hard G sound. So the U gets dropped because there's no need to have a U there. The U is a signal to make the G hard. So we have sigo, but now it has to come back because sigues, sigue, siguen. Okay. Yeah. If I did not keep the U in sigues, in sigue, in siguen, if I had no letter U, it would be G-E-S, G-E, G-E-N, and then it would be siges, sige, sigen. And it wouldn't get the G sound. So there, that I serves a purpose. It serves a purpose of giving the G the hard G sound, right? And seguimos goes back to the original from seguir, S-E-G, seguimos. So sigo, sigues, sigue, siguen, seguimos outside the boot. Bien. A ver, repetir gets this, reír, sonreír, competir, and decir. We're going to take a little bit of time on decir. Decir es muy común. Decir es this is more común, es más común que los otros, except maybe for repetir, because, you know, repito, repites, repite. See, we use that when we ask somebody to repeat, right? But decir is also an E to I stem change. It's also odd in that it's what we call a go verb, meaning it gets a go for the yo. Like tengo got a go, yeah? Some verbs in Spanish get a go, a G-O, and there's no G in the original infinitive. But that G-O as the yo form just kind of pops up there. So it's a kind of a special category of irregulars. Some verbs just do this for yo, and decir is one of them. But decir means to say, to tell. And as such, this is a verb that people use all the time. Oh, how many times do you say in English? He's going to tell me the news. I'm telling you right now. Tell me something. Tell me what happened. All right, we use this verb tell or say a lot, and they will use it a lot too. So it's important to know that even though the yo form gets this odd go thing, it is essentially an E to I stem change. Decir, to tell, becomes yo digo, very, very odd. Yo digo, I say, I tell, but tú dices, él dice, ellos dicen, and then outside the shoe will be our nosotros form, decimos. Okay? So out of your E to I stem changes, what are the most important ones to know? Decir for sure, probably repetir, servir and seguir, those are important. And I'll send you this file so you don't have to copy them. Pedir, those are important, okay? Okay, and this little slide just tells you that you just have to memorize which ones are E to I's. Sadly, you just have to know which ones are. So, okay. Magnífico. Vamos a practicar. We're going to practice with some of these. Sí, dime. Yes.
In the book on page 72,
Sí.
could you pronounce devolver, those conjugations?
Volver.
And to return and something and the to return. Those
To return.
too many weird combinations for
Too
me.
many, to return
Could you just
something and
pronounce
to
those?
return to a place. Sure. So, devolver. Devolver, I'll put it down in the chat box so people know which verb we're talking about. Devolver, which is based on volver, to return a thing. Like to return,
Right.
somebody loaned me one of these and I give it back to them. It's devolver, right? When I return books to the library, I borrow somebody's keys and I give them back their keys, right? So devolver is to give something back.
But could you pronounce the ones with the UE?
Sí. So the forms, and she's looking en la página 72. She's looking on page 72 of the book, en la página 72. The way we pronounce this, and it's a lot of vowels, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those sound like this. Yo devuelvo. Devuelvo. Tú devuelves. Ella
Vuelves.
devuelve.
Okay.
And I'm going to look straight across, like I'm going to stay with the shoe thing. Ellas devuelven. But
Yeah.
outside the boot, it goes back to the O, the letter O in there is devolvemos. Devolvemos. And devolver is to return a thing to somebody or to wherever you got it from. Okay. Devolver. Devuelvo, devuelves, devuelve, devuelven, devolvemos. And volver by itself, volver means to return to a place, to come back. So not to return a thing, but a person comes back, a person returns, okay? They return to a place, but not returning a book, not returning a pen, not returning an item that is loaned. Volver, volver is the original, devolver is built on it. So the forms of volver are vuelvo, so it's UE, ue, ue. Vuelves, vuelve, vuelven. But we'll go back to the O, that's the original for the nosotros form. Volvemos. Volvemos. Bien?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think it's the UE with the LV. That's just a lot of
And
going on there.
And well, it is a lot going on. And the UE is, well, ue, ue, ue. It's almost like a W sound to us,
Oh,
right?
okay.
In our ears. Ue, ue. UE will be ue, ue, and we pronounce them together, right?
Okay.
Not ue, not ue, but ue, ue.
Okay. Ue.
They merge, they slide together. Like I and E next to each other in Spanish will be ie,
Yeah.
ie.
Okay.
Not ie, not ie, but ie, 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 ie. Yeah, they have to
Gotcha.
slide together. They do have to slide together. Okay. A ver. Okay. So, entonces, we've got, momentito, I need to get my place back here. Vale, bien. Muy bien. It's kind of hard to take these in isolation, but what I'm going to have you guys do is to go off in small groups, and I'm going to ask you to use I'm going to put down the chat box, so make sure your chat box is open. We're going to use pedir, to ask for, to order. And I'm going to have you go off into small groups. This is going to be a brief thing. I'm going to type what you're going to ask each other. You're going to practice with pedir first. Pedir. ¿Qué pides? En, or ¿qué pides? And I want you to ask each other, like take turns asking each other, ¿qué pides? ¿Qué pides? What do you order? But we have to have more information. What do you order? Where? You're going to use pedir, ¿qué pides? What do you order? ¿Qué pides? We're going to ask it with tres. ¿Qué pides de desayuno? ¿Qué pides de desayuno? So you may need to note this down. ¿Qué pides de desayuno? The second thing you're going to ask your partners is ¿qué pides en un restaurante formal? At a formal restaurant. And then you're going to ask a third thing. ¿Qué pides en un restaurante mexicano? You're going to go off and ask various people what they order in these three situations or these places. De desayuno is not really a place, right? That's a time of day. ¿Qué pides? Bien. ¿Qué pides? And son tres. We're going to set you off into about 4 rooms, I think. Cuatro. I think you're probably, but I want everybody to take a turn using something, answering all those questions. I'll give you about 5 minutes, but you won't need more than 5. And then we'll come back for another one. But all using ¿qué pides? What do you order? ¿Qué pides? ¿Qué pides? Bien? Okay. And you will need to hit your join button ahorita, right around now.
Marilyn, how do you say breakfast?
De desayuno.
Okay.
Desayuno. Desayuno, breakfast.
Okay.
Desayuno. Desayuno means literally breaking your fast. Hola, Cindy. We're coming on back from a breakout room session. You'll go off into the next one. I'll get you assigned later. We're just doing practice with stem changers so that you know what we're practicing. They just practiced pedir. Excelente, excelente. Aquí vienen todos. Everybody else should be coming back pretty soon. Muy pronto, muy pronto. ¿Hay preguntas o no? ¿Nada? Okay. Esperamos a los otros. We're just waiting on the others. And there, here comes everybody. Okay. Muy bien. Okay. Fantástico. ¿Tienen preguntas o no?
I do, Marilyn.
Okay.
When you say KP days, is it in desayuno? I mean, it's not para desayuno or
No, it's usually just de desayuno. What do you order
day.
for breakfast? We would
Day.
say it is
Desayuno.
for, but they use it as day.
Okay, got it.
Sí. Es buena pregunta. Good question, Trish. ¿Hay más preguntas o no? And you probably got all different kinds of things. Okay. Next
Actually,
one.
Marilyn,
Oh, sí, Nora, dime.
this always confuses me when we're talking about for, like desayuno.
Desayuno. Mhm.
What is the difference between saying de and para?
Loaded question because, yeah, para is for, you could say para desayuno, you could. Para means for, para indicates a destination sometimes, para means in order to. Prepositions are very tricky and sticky and thorny kind of subjects. Sometimes they translate exactly the way we use them, and sometimes they just don't. And sometimes you just need to get familiar with how they're used. And this is one of those you just kind of need. De desayuno pido for breakfast. You could say para desayuno. You could. Somebody would totally understand you. But that would be would be fairly common to use for that. And there's no real reason for me to give you. It's just the way they do it, sadly. Okay. Hay más. Okay. Otra pregunta, different question. We're going to use something different. We're not going to use pedir in the next round. We're going to use servir. Servir, muy obvio. Servir, to serve. No, servir, to serve. So the question is going to be this question. It'll be the same one for all three situations. Sí, three situations. ¿Qué sirven en? ¿Qué sirven en? That's what you're going to be asking in your next round. ¿Qué sirven en? What are they serving? ¿Qué sirven en? ¿Qué sirven en? And you're going to ask different places, different situations. ¿Qué sirven en? So we're going to give you 3 scenarios to finish up each question. En un restaurante vegetariano. ¿Qué sirven en un restaurante vegetariano? Vegetariano, vegetarian. ¿Qué sirven en un restaurante vegetariano? The next scenario will be ¿qué sirven en? La casa de tus parientes. La casa de tus parientes, your relative's house. Parientes here does not mean parents. It means relatives. ¿Qué sirven en la casa de tus parientes? What would one of your relatives normally serve? What do they serve at their house? Y número 3. ¿Qué sirven en Starbucks? Fácil. que sirven en un restaurante vegetariano, que sirven en la casa de tus parientes, que sirven en Starbucks. ¿Bien?
Mhm.
Vale. Excelente. I will send you off to your rooms. And Cindy, I'm just going to assign you to, or did it assign you? Quizás no. We'll see. Vamos a ver. A ver, muy bien. Okay. Bueno, ¿hay alguna pregunta? Any kind of question from that last one? ¿Sí o no? ¿No?
No.
Obvio. Obvio. Ok.
Beautiful.
Aquí vienen más. Here comes everybody else. ¿Hay preguntas aquí con servir? Any questions with servir?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, ok. Vamos a practicar un poquito con esto, con seguir. We're going to practice.
Seguir.
We're going to do a little twist with this one, seguir. Seguir is usually used to say keep on doing something, often used really in commands. It will sound more like siga, but there is a way we use seguir to say that somebody, we use seguir like we use estar with those ing words. Estoy caminando, I'm doing it right now.
Mm.
If instead of using estar, we use seguir, it means somebody keeps on doing that. So I can use estoy hablando español. Estoy hablando español. I'm speaking Spanish. I could change that to sigo hablando español. I keep on speaking Spanish. Yeah. So in other words, instead of using estoy hablando, I plug in sigo hablando. And it changes the meaning ever so little bit. Instead of I am speaking, I keep on speaking. I continue to speak, right? But that's a way to say that somebody keeps on doing something, meaning they're doing it over and over again. Okay, bien. And so you are going to use seguir really only probably either in the singular or yeah, probably third person.
Sigo.
Okay, seguir. So seguir is what we're going to use, and we're going to use it as sigue with ando or sigue with yendo, and it will mean to keep on doing something. Entonces, las preguntas. So the questions are going to be these two. ¿Quién sigue actuando en películas? Oh, and I'm sorry, that didn't get spelled right because I have a fat finger. It should be películas. Perdón. Have to fix that. Películas. ¿Quién sigue actuando en películas?
What do you
Who
want to
keeps on
watching?
acting
Movies.
in
Movies.
movies? Okay. Y una segunda pregunta and a second question, which will be, ¿quiénes? And we're going to make this one plural. Siguen ¿quiénes siguen cantando buenas canciones?
Who sings good
That's
songs?
Who keeps on?
Singing.
Who keeps on singing good songs? Who keeps on making good records? Who keeps on making good songs? So we're talking about acting and singing, acting and singing. You're going to talk about singing groups or singing people and actors. ¿Quién sigue actuando? ¿Quiénes siguen cantando? Bien? Bien? Okay.
Bien.
Now, there you will have to name somebody. It won't be like the question about me quiere atrapar, because Here, we're going to have to talk about who actually does it. So we are going to have to name somebody, a group or a person, whichever it may be. So we'll send you out to do a little
Ian.
discussion with that.
Yan. Yan, sige. Tuwandoin. Películas. Las películas.
Muy bien. Vamos a ver. You'll need to take yourselves off of mute in case you have any questions coming on back. Aquí vienen todos. Here comes everybody. Aquí vienen todos y más y más y más y todos. Aquí vienen todos. Ok. Bienvenidos y bienvenidas. Bueno, ¿alguna pregunta? Any question about using that with seguir? ¿Sí o no?
Diane, you want to talk about it? That
And make sure you're unmuted if you want to bring up a question.
somebody that is not like singing anymore, what do you say? No siguen cantando?
Oh, no siguen cantando. Los Beatles
No siguen
no
cantando
siguen
más?
cantando. No siguen
you use-
cantando. They don't keep on doing it. Yeah. Ya no. Ya no. Ya no. Not anymore. Ya no.
Ya
siguen.
no.
Ya
Ya
no siguen
Ya no
cantando.
siguen.
Ya no siguen.
Oh.
Ya no.
Siguen.
Ya no says no longer.
Ah.
Or not anymore. We have different
How
ways
do
of saying
you
that. And
how do
ya
you
no
spell it?
usually comes, oh, it's two words, ya no. And I'm typing them in. Ya no.
Ya
Oh,
no.
ya
Ya,
no.
ya no.
Ya,
Ya,
ya no.
ya no.
Ya
Two,
no.
dos palabras.
Ya, ya no.
No
Ya
longer.
no.
No longer, not
Ya no.
anymore. Yeah, ya
Ya
no.
no.
Ya,
Ya
ya
no.
no. Ya no. Okay.
So you just say
Ah.
ya no cantando?
Ya no siguen cantando.
Siguen cantando, okay.
Ya no está cantando. Ya no siguen cantando. Sí. The ya no usually comes in front of the verb. That would be a good rule of thumb for that. Buena pregunta. ¿Hay más o no?
Ya no, no longer.
Bien.
No
Okay.
longer.
We're going to take some of these stem changes and mix them all up in a contextual story. And we're going to take a look at that as kind of a way to wrap that up. And I'll preview what I want you to do for the week besides your reading. Pero vamos a empezar con una historia breve con verbos en contexto, verbos de cambio radical. These are called radical change. We call them stem changing, but radical change, cambio radical. And we're going to use these verbs. They give us a word list. We have a word list at the top to work from. So we've got almorzar, and notice if you look up these words in a dictionary, be it online or in a physical book, usually they will have these little quotes or these little parentheses of UE or parentheses IE or parentheses I. And that's going to be your indication when you look up a word, if you're looking it up in the dictionary to warn you, this one's a stem changer. So they'll often be denoted with what the stem change is in parentheses after the infinitive, like you see on the screen here in our list for the top. So we're going to use this list from the top: almorzar, dormir, encontrar, entender, pedir, pensar, poder, preferir. And we're going to use preferir more next week. To combine it with the me gusta, no me gusta, querer, servir, and tener, which they just list as irregular because it does all kinds of odd things, because it does that go thing. Tener does that go thing for yo, and no stem change in the go, but the other ones get tienes. Yeah. So we're going to use those verbs in the bottom. El almuerzo, and here we're using almuerzo as the noun, lunch. El almuerzo de Lola y Sara. El almuerzo, Lola and Sara's lunch. Bien. Y Lola dice, she says, Lola dice, hola Sara, ¿cómo te va? How's it going with you? ¿Cómo te va? Bastante bien. ¿Y tú, Lola? ¿Qué hay de nuevo? What's new? And pensar here does not mean think, it means plan to. I plan to have a dinner for my friends.
Pienso.
Sábado, this Saturday. ¿Cómo se dice I plan to have? We use the word think.
Pienso.
Pienso.
O tener.
Pues, well, pues, pienso
Tener una cena.
Pienso tener una cena
Para mis amigos este sábado.
Qué buena idea.
Puedo.
Can I help?
Puedo.
¿Puedo
Puedo ayudar
ayudar con las
preparaciones.
preparaciones? Sí.
Claro que sí, claro que sí. Yeah, sure.
¿Quieres?
¿Quieres?
¿Quieres? Do you want to go to the market? ¿Quieres ir al mercado? ¿Quieres ir al mercado central conmigo ahora? I always find good
Encuentro.
meat there. Yo siempre
Encuentro.
encuentro. Yo siempre encuentro carne muy buena allí. I always find really good meat there. Y frutas también. Why don't we have some lunch first? ¿Por qué no?
Almorzamos.
Almorzamos primero. Tengo mucha hambre. I'm really hungry. Yo también. Where do you prefer to eat? ¿Dónde?
Prefieres.
Prefieres comer? ¿Dónde prefieres comer? And you notice that it's not the the
Comer.
PRE that gets the IE, it's the prefieres, right? The E that's next to the IR or the ER, the AR, that's what gets the change. So it's prefieres. ¿Por qué no vamos a McDonald's? Ay, ¿por qué no vamos a McDonald's? Me gustan las hamburguesas. ¡Qué horror!
Yo no.
Entiendo.
No entiendo. No entiendo esto,
Yes.
man. I do not understand this. La comida rápida
Tiene.
tiene mucha grasa, has lots of fat. Grasa is fat, not gordo fat. Fat as in, well,
Fatty food.
the actual, okay, you know, well, yeah. Grasa. Fat in food would be grasa. Okay, bien, magnífico. Okay, okay. A ver, I will give you the link to that so you can go back and try that a little bit later. What I am going to show you, I'm going to show you a preview. Actually, I will have you watch a video on the frequency. We did not get to this today, but it's only a 4-minute video, so it's not long. So besides reading, finish up your novela, however many chapters you have, finish it up, because next week is our last spring session week. Then we have a week off, and then we start back up in June, first week of June, I believe. Next week, el 24 de mayo, 24th of May will be our last session for spring. Finish your novela, watch during this week in between this little video. It's just going to have lots of helpful words to talk about how often you do stuff, how to say things like always or a lot or sometimes or from time to time, but not every single time. And it's laden with vocab. It's a heavy duty vocab type video. So you may want to take some notes on frequency words, things that relate to time, and know that for when these words go into longer phrases, like, por ejemplo, todos los viernes, every Friday, or de vez en cuando, from time to time. When you use a time marker that has many words strung together, usually that will either lead off a sentence, it's the engine of the train, or it will finish up the sentence, it'll be the caboose. So if you've got a time frequency phrase and it's more than one word strung together, usually you want to lead off with that or finish up with that. And it's okay either way. doing that. She'll show you examples of that. So you're going to do that. You're going to also watch a couple of videos on Gustar. We are going to bring up Gustar. There is a very lengthy segment in this book on Gustar. We will not do all of it because actually it has to be broken apart into pieces. But the part about just Gustar es útil, it is useful. En la página 153, it begins on 153, and it tells you how gustar really doesn't mean to like, why that's problematic. And then it'll go on for a few pages and it'll start to tell you about sometimes we tag on extra phrases if it is unclear who likes something. And then I want you to stop at 158, 153 to 158, 153 hasta 158. I'll put that in your email. Keep in mind that gustar is a special verb. You're not going to use it for yo. The reason you're going to watch these videos is it's going to really, really try to stamp in your brain. Do not use gustar for yo. Do not use gustar for tú. Do not use gustar for nosotros. We're going to use it as gusta or gustan. Boom. That's it. So you won't be using all those other conjugations to express the idea of liking something. The other idea I want you to be aware of is that gustar is sometimes used to refer to people, but not that much. And when gustar is used to refer to liking people, it generally might mean in a romantic, hey baby kind of sense. Just saying. So you probably want to avoid gustar when talking about liking people. I'll show you next week what they use instead of that, because there is something else, but it'll kind of behave like gustar. It'll behave like gustar, but it won't be gustar. Okay, so you're going to watch 2 videos on gustar, 1 video on frequency words, tell how often you do something. And we're going to practice a lot, our last session, with all kinds of things having to do with gustar. And keep in mind, there will be other verbs that behave like or follow the pattern of gustar. So we're probably going to take 1 or 2 others besides gustar, but you have to get gustar kind of imprinted first. And once you do that, you'll know what to do with the other 2 ones we'll add on to that next week. ¿Está bien?
Bien.
¿Está bien? Fantástico. And I'll give you the link to the little kid's story because you see a little bit of gustar in there as well, just a little bit, un poquito. And gustar will be plenty for us to practice next week. And we're going to bring in prefiere too as a response to using instead of no me gusta. Okay? So we're going to wrap up a lot of these ideas and tie them up with a bow. Bien?
Bien.
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 Fantástico, me gusta muchísimo. Bueno, espero que tengan una semana fantástica. I hope you guys all have a great week. And Nora, I have to send you a picture of those lovely flowers because they look better than the first day. Tengo flores de Nora y eso es todo, ¿ok? Bien.
Adiós.
Excelente.
Gracias.
Adiós.
Gracias.
Adiós.
Gracias.
Nos vemos el lunes. See you guys all on Monday.
Okay.